After several very stressful losses to Toronto, the Philadelphia 76ers came out in Game 6 and absolutely humiliated the Raptors and Drake on their home floor, winning by 35 points and advancing to the second round of the NBA playoffs. In this upcoming series, the Philadelphia 76ers will play the Miami Heat, and I believe that the Sixers will beat Miami in 5 to 6 games. Let me tell you why. First, let's talk about Miami, because the Miami Heat are a very good team, and on paper, are clearly superior to the Toronto Raptors. They have probably a better coach, they have a better overall team with much better depth, and they have a better star player in Jimmy Butler than Siakam or Van Fleet are for Toronto. So you would think they would be a tougher matchup, especially if you saw how they just manhandled Atlanta in an easy 5 games. Trae Young was completely locked down by the Miami defense, and the rest of the team just could not do enough to keep up. Meanwhile, Jimmy Butler has been very solid this season. His three-point shooting is weirdly terrible, as it has been ever since he got to Miami, but his facilitating, his defense, and his overall scoring in the mid-range and at the rim have all been very, very good, and as usual, he seems to be stepping it up just a little bit in the postseason. Kyle Lowry has been very solid for Miami this year. He's been a good three-point shooter, and this team as a whole is just filled with excellent three-point shooters. Tyler Hero is one of the best in the league. PJ Tucker doesn't take a lot of them, but when he does, he is a sniper. Duncan Robinson is a great three-point shooter. Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, and Caleb Martin are all great three-point shooters, as well as the newly revived Victor Oladipo, who played pretty well in the last game of that Hawks series, and in the few games he played during the regular season, shot 42% from 3 himself, while also having the potential to be a good defensive player. And it's not just him. Markieff Morris is a big body on defense. Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry are both solid defenders, Butler especially. PJ Tucker is a good switchable defender, and Bam Adebayo is the most versatile player in the entire NBA, second maybe only to Draymond Green. He's a great rim protector, he can switch on the perimeter with absolutely no problems, and he should have been higher up in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. So how exactly is Philly going to stop this team? They have defense, they have leadership, they have star power, and they have a great coach in Eric Spoelstra. It seems like a bad matchup, and that is what I'm hearing from a whole lot of people. I have had many people tell me that Miami is a bad matchup for Philly. They're going to outcoach them, they're going to outshoot them, blah, 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 blah. And I've got to say, I don't know what the hell you all are talking about. I really don't. I have no idea. When people say that Miami is a bad matchup for Philly, I really don't have a clue what they're saying. I think if you look at the 4 remaining playoff teams in the East, alright, you've got the Sixers, the Bucks, the Celtics, and Miami. Miami is pretty clearly, in my eyes, the easiest team to exploit on both ends of the floor. And this is not me trying to be disrespectful to Miami. Once again, I think they are a very good team. But being realistic, Toronto was the toughest matchup for the Sixers on their side of the Eastern Conference bracket. Now that they have beaten Toronto, they have buried their Raptor demons, I really can't see Miami pushing them to even a Game 7, and that is if they are healthy. Alright? Joel Embiid is a bad matchup for Bam Adebayo. He is not a good matchup for him. Bam is an undersized center, he's only 6'9 or 6'10, and while his greatest strength is versatility, that doesn't matter too much when you are playing against a 7'1, 7'2, 270 or 80 pound Joel Embiid. He is going to be able to take advantage of Bam Adebayo on the defensive end, and meanwhile on offense, he is also a favorable matchup for Embiid defensively. And what I mean by that is, Joel Embiid tends to struggle on defense, despite being one of the best rim protectors in the NBA. if you pull him out of the paint. Similar to Rudy Gobert, you do not want this man chasing three-point shooters around the perimeter, you want to keep him under the rim. And while Bam Adebayo does have a decent mid-range game, he is by no means a threat to shoot threes. And likewise, Jimmy Butler is also not a threat to shoot threes. I know that he just shot well in the Hawks series, but he didn't take that many three-point attempts, and throughout the last several regular seasons, we know that Jimmy Butler is not a good or consistent three-point shooter. You can leave him open on the three-point line most of the time, very similarly to a DeMar DeRozan. So between him and Bam Adebayo, despite the Heat being a great overall three-point shooting team, two of their starters, and I would say their two best players, are not threats from long range, and that makes this team far, far easier to defend. Yes, they pass the ball around very well, but as long as you stay glued to their perimeter players, to the Duncan Robinsons, their Tyler Heroes, and the guys they have coming off the bench like Max Strus, who cooked the Sixers in a matchup earlier this series, you switch a lot on the perimeter, you fight around screens, you keep those guys from getting open threes, and all of a sudden, all you gotta do is keep Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo out of the paint. And I say all you gotta do like that's an easy thing to do. It is not. These are two very skilled players, especially Jimmy Butler on offense. They are not easy matchups, but Philly does have the defensive talent to make life very difficult on them. Once again, Joel Embiid is a tough matchup for Bam Adebayo on both ends of the floor. Tobias Harris is a big body who has looked very good defensively in these playoffs so far. I think he could do a decent job on Jimmy Butler. Not that he's going to lock him down or anything, but he's not going to be fried chicken either. Matisse Thybulle is in a similar situation, because despite having a size disadvantage, he's a very strong player, and once again, you just force him to take threes. You keep him out of the paint, and you can really hurt his offensive production. We just saw the Bucks do the exact same thing with DeMar DeRozan in the first round. These guys who only shoot mid-rangers and don't shoot threes tend to be easier to exploit on offense in a playoff situation. Meanwhile, let's talk about the Heat's defense. I know they have been a very good defensive team this season. They've played great defense because they have an excellent defensive coach, and they do have some very good defensive players. But we already covered that Bam Adebayo, with his versatility, is kind of rendered obsolete against Joel Embiid. His biggest advantage is not that huge of a deal against this Sixers team because of Joel Embiid and the superstar that he is. Meanwhile, on the perimeter, Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson, especially Tyler Hero, have been very suspect defenders, alright? Tyrese Maxey has broken out since the arrival of James Harden, and while Harden himself has been very iffy as a scorer, he still can get past guys when he needs to and draw a whole lot of fouls. So I think that Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson are going to have some very real problems defensively, and this all comes together before we even talk about the potential biggest issue with Miami, because if we're just looking at these teams on a matchup-to-matchup standpoint, my take would be Sixers in 6. And I would say that there's a chance for Miami to come on to push it to a Game 7 or to even upset the Sixers entirely, because I do believe it would be an upset just based off the matchups. I know Miami's the 1 seed, but they won like 2 more games than Philly in the regular season, and most of the season Philly didn't have James Harden. So not that big of a gap. I do think the Sixers should be the favorites here. But this is before you consider that Miami may not be fully healthy. Both Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry could miss the first game of this second round series, maybe even multiple. Lowry has a hamstring issue. We all know how iffy those can be. Just look at James Harden. You do not want to force an older player with a little bit of weight on him to play through a hamstring injury. It could only make it worse. Jimmy Butler has been an injury woe since getting to Miami. He's been in and out of the lineup, so I don't know how much they're going to push him. He may try to come back early, but is he going to be 100%? We just don't know. And Victor Oladipo, while he's played pretty well for Miami, is just about the most injury-prone player in NBA history. So, I'm only half joking when I say that Victor Oladipo may not be able to play 6 games straight in a playoff series. He may not be able to stay healthy for that long. The man really does get hurt that often. He's probably worse than Anthony Davis when it comes to injuries. So this team has injury woes. Defensively, I don't think the Sixers are a good matchup for them. And offensively, I think the Sixers match up fairly well against them. So I do think this is still going to be a tough series. I don't want to say it's going to be some kind of blowout, but especially if Butler and or Kyle Lowry are missing multiple games of the series, I don't think it's too unreasonable to say Sixers in 5 if they're not totally healthy. If the Miami Heat, that is, are not totally healthy. And even if they are, Sixers in 6 is my current bet. I really hope, like, knock on wood, really hope I'm not jinxing my team here, but I truly believe that Toronto was a tougher matchup for the Sixers than Miami is, despite Miami being a better overall team. So my prediction is that the Sixers will win this series in 5 to 6 games and will go on to play the winner of the Bucks and Celtics series. And I'm not going to make any predictions about that series just yet because the idea of that series really scares me. Thank you all for watching.